Good evening everyone. Sorry for the delay on this video. A few technical difficulties and just life in general getting in the way. But here I am, later than build. We'll get this out as soon as I can. But welcome along to the new kitchen. I know if you like the new look. Feels a little bit more homely, I thought. So see how this one goes. Obviously, if you don't like it, let me know and I'll go back to my kitchen corner. So as promised, here we go with the second dish that I'm going to show you guys. Again, using some very simple ingredients that you should all have, and this is gnocchi alla Parisienne. For any of you that have made choux pastry, this is very similar to that. For those of you that hasn't, well, this is quite an easy one to do, so let's see how we all get on. So onto the ingredients for this dish. What you're going to need is 165 ml of water, 85 grams of butter, 250 grams of plain flour, 1 tablespoon of Dijon or English mustard, 120 grams of grated cheddar and 3 eggs. You may notice that I'm going a bit smaller in mine, but that's purely because I don't want to make a massive batch and have wastage, especially not these days. So I've got my water in the pan already, and we are just literally going to let that come up to the boil with our butter. Now I did promise alongside this I'll give a vegan alternative. Obviously that's only going to be verbal, so that's for you, Jake. Thank you. Jake yesterday took part with his little sidekick, and they created the flatbreads, the roti, and did that alongside a vegan Rogan Josh, which the photos came through looked really cool. Looked amazing. Could have come over if I was allowed. So the idea would be instead of the eggs is always the harder thing to kind of switch out for. There's certain things you can do with egg whites when you're whipping. But the actual egg itself, what I found is if you use a whipped silken tofu, so that's just taking your silken tofu, so nice and soft, and then you either whip it into a food processor or you just break it down with a fork to start with and then whip it by hand. For that you'd be looking at around about 120 grams to go into this recipe. And then obviously take away your butter, you can add in a vegetable alternative, something like Trex, works really well. Other than that, I know it's a brand, but I'm sure there's other ones out there. So you're looking at things like Flora, because that is now pretty much vegan. And then to switch out your cheese, originally with the gnocchi Parisienne, which probably a lot of people are shouting at me now and probably giving me comments, especially chefs, is Parmesan. I just thought we'd do something slightly different with this. So a vegan Parmesan would be perfect. So there you go, that'd be the same process, but for vegan. Right, so my butter and my water is coming up to the boil, and I'm just pinching a bit of salt. I'm not too sure if you can see that, hopefully it's closing enough. You want quite a fierce boil on this bit, and the reason being is because you want the butter and the water to really kind of mix in together. Okay, so at this stage, I'm going to add in the flour. Give it a quick stir and then take it straight off the heat. So I'm going to hold it like this, hopefully you will be able to see it quite well. I'll zoom in, there you go. So what you're looking to do here is end up with a good dough. Flour gets mixed into the water and fat. For those of you that's made things like a bechamel sauce, a white sauce, quite an old school thing, but if you remember doing those at any point, or if you're still doing them now, you're kind of looking to get that dough. But what you want to do with this dough in particular is make sure that you get it all mixed nicely together. As you can see, it's forming quite nicely into a lump. Coming away from the sides. there we go. I'm going to get the cheese in now. Like I said, we're using cheddar for this. Originally it's Parmesan. By all means go with Parmesan. I'm just trying to think of things that I think more people have in their cupboards than likely won't. And I don't want to start a shopping epidemic when everybody starts rushing out to buy ingredients that they want for this dish. But then feel free, obviously, when you go shopping or you do an order next time, pick some up and give it a go with the Parmesan and see the difference. Also with gnocchi, quite often you would find that some nice fresh herbs will be going in there, so like a little bit of thyme, a little bit of parsley, which is really, really nice. Again, I'm just kind of omitting certain things, A, because I haven't got it necessarily just yet, and secondly, again, I'm not expecting everybody at home to have it, so we're just kind of making things simple. And I think, to be honest with you, cooking something simple is better than no cooking at all, and I'd much rather see people enjoying themselves rather than worrying they haven't got stuff, or thinking they need to message and go, well, I haven't got this, what can I do? I mean, by all means do that, but let's try and make it simple. Right, so cheese has now gone in amongst it. Cheese is nicely melted through. Okay, so there we go. Bring it down a little bit. Okay, so got to let it cool for a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next stage. Okay, so we're back, and obviously we still got the dough, and that's now cooled down a little bit. So last little bit, we're going to add in our Dijon mustard, and we're going to add in our eggs. Now ideally you just add your egg in maybe one at a time. You can put it in whole and break it down that way, or you can put it in whisked up like I've done here. So a little bit at a time, and then just work around the dough. Just let it get in all that egg and pick up the mustard. Now you don't obviously want to leave this dough for too long. It gets too cold, it'll be very difficult to work it. The reason why we hold it off for a few minutes, as probably a lot of you do know, is so we don't cook the eggs. We don't want to scramble the eggs before we've got it mixed into our dough. Okay, this is going to make the dough pipable and really nice. So while I'm doing this, I'm obviously doing this live, so you can see what it's all about. And do a few shout outs. So yesterday was obviously my first one, and to be honest with you, I didn't really know how it would go and how many people would want to get involved, but very honoured and humbled as to how many of you did. So thank you all, and for those that's watching today as well, thank you. Just a few mentions, I think. So some of the people that actually sent me photos back with what they did, and there were some really good results there, and I'm glad you all enjoyed doing it. And again, it's just something you're not really expecting people to do, so thank you. But this goes out to Emma, Joanne, and Jake, and then other mentions to all the people that got in touch in some way, shape or form. It's a quick one. We've got Tim, Naomi, Lois, Kim, sister Torzi and sister Kate, my brother Andre, who's over in Spain with his family. Stay safe, guys. Love to you all. Catherine, Richard, Darren, Mark, Kirsty, David, Claire, Becky, Gina, Oliver, Caroline, Harriet, Pip, and Chantal. Mark, Mr. Hammock over in Africa. Miss you, buddy. Thanks for getting in touch. And another Mark, not from Africa, but from Australia. So had a nice chat with him yesterday. Take care, buddy. I'll speak to you soon. Anyway, again, just can't thank you enough. No point in me doing this if people weren't getting in touch, and you all are. So really appreciate it. So this is a bit of a workout, which is also a good thing to do at home, I think. When making a dough, you really got to kind of, once you've got it in there, beat it. You want to end up with a nice soft lump-free dough. Lump-free dough. I've just got the last of my egg in, so I'll give it a little mix and then show you how it looks at the end. If you find this a difficult thing to do, if you don't have the hand strength or the arm strength to do it. It's quite a hard job. You could always do this bit through a food processor, and it would be a lot quicker. I just thought I'd do it old school. Again, if you're making this and it's not coming out right and you're not too sure what's going wrong, just message me. Okay, I'd rather people make mistakes trying than not trying at all. I'm sure we can figure out where you went wrong. If it hasn't come out right, take photos or do a little video and send it to me via email, which is dsfoodpod@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you. So, okay, I'm going to lift this up now. So this is what you're looking for. Beautiful, silky, quite stiff dough, okay, but something that's certainly pipeable, okay. So a nice cheesy, mustardy, gooey mess. Okay, so I'm going to bag that up in a piping bag and we'll get on to the next stage. If you don't have piping bags, don't worry, there's something else you can do instead. And I'll tell you about that in just a sec. Okay, so we're back. Now I've got my beautiful pastry in piping bag. Like I said, if you haven't got a piping bag, don't worry. There are other ways that you can do it. So for instance, you can spread it out if you can in a tub or anything similar, and let it set off a little bit in the fridge, and then you can just pick out little balls. Okay. The other thing you can do really is just use a teaspoon and 2 teaspoons, just scoop out a little bit and then just ease it off with the next one into your hot water, which leads me on to the next stage. So right now, just out of shot, I've got some water boiling. Ideally it's quite a deep pan, the deeper the better, so like a saucepan. I've chosen something a lot more shallow, so hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on. I think something too tall you won't be able to see it. So salted water, and you're just going to bring that up to a nice rapid boil. Okay. Now, when it comes to doing this, there's 2 different options. I'm going to show you one now. So, if you look carefully, I'm not going to make it too big. You can make it as big as you like, but obviously bear in mind later on when it comes to the cooking, you want to make sure it's cooked through. I like doing a thinner, smaller gnocchi. Seems like getting more. So you can either go straight into the pan, which I'll show you in a minute, or the other option you've got onto a floured surface. Just keep it nice and even. Draw out your line. Okay. Tiny touch more flour on top. Then you can either take a pair of scissors and just cut even shapes, sizes. Or the other option you've got, grab a knife, do the same. So just as we're waiting for the water to come up to the full boil, a couple of pointers. If you're finding that your dough is a bit too sticky and a bit too kind of like loose, pop it in your fridge for 20 minutes or so, and then you find it'll be a lot easier to work with. The longer you leave it in your fridge, the tougher it will become, so it'll be harder to pipe out. However, like I said, if you actually want to just set it and then scoop it out with a spoon or just pick little balls out, it's going to be a lot easier for you anyway. So, water's coming out to a boil now, nice and rapid. I've got my hole cut. Just going to wet the scissors and then just slowly allow it to come out when it's at a nice length. Drop them in. You want them roughly all about the same size, and if your scissors start sticking up, back in the water. A few at a time, don't want to overload it. One more. And then what you're looking for, and hopefully you can see this, is you're waiting for the gnocchi to come up and rise to the surface. Once they've risen to the surface, they are cooked. Okay? And then you scoop them out and you need to just put them into a bowl of ice cold water. Ideally if you've got ice, get that in, but again if you haven't, just make sure it's nice and cold. This will shock them and stop them from cooking any further. And here they come. There you go, I don't know if you can see those. Straight into the water. So you can make them as fat and shorter if you like. You can make them longer and thinner. It's entirely up to you. Get a few more through, one more lot maybe. So again, well, take off the excess. And here we go. 1, 2. Don't know why I'm counting, it's not Sesame Street. Now obviously again, if you make this, you can make a couple of batches, have one day, one the next day. It doesn't live that well in a fridge. A couple of days really max, to be honest with you, it starts kind of not looking so great. But again, I think you're fine so far. Quite a simple thing, a bit more effort involved to what we had to do yesterday, but still. Okay. Okay, so our gnocchi has now cooled down perfectly. And what I got here is a tray just lined with some kitchen towel. Hopefully you've got some of that. If not, just a colander, but when you put it in, just put it in really gently and just let it roll through. Don't throw it in because you probably will damage your gnocchi. And then just literally lay them out. These are kind of like little dumplings. Like I said, like a savoury choux almost. And this just goes really well as a whole series of different dishes. I'm sure some of you are coming up with ideas already in your head. So you can do simple basic tomato sauce, like you would have with a pasta. One of my favourites is pesto. I've got some wild garlic pesto, which I'm going to be putting on this one for the end of the show. It's just loads you can do. You can do creamy sauces, you can do a cheese fondue, pretty much whatever you like and whatever you've got in your cupboards. So if you get stuck for that one, just get in touch, drop me a line and I will help you out with the rest. Okay, so there we go. Last stage, frying. Okay, so the next stage is the frying stage. You're using a shallow pan here. If you have got a deep fat fryer at home though, I would recommend using that. The reason being is you get a really nice, even, golden, crispy shell, which is kind of what we're really looking for. But again, I'm doing it this way because I think most people probably haven't got one. I don't have one myself. So what I've got in here so far is a good amount of just regular oil covering the bottom of the pan. And when that's getting to a really nice heat, is take some butter, good knob of butter, or again, obviously vegetarian or vegan, just go for your alternatives. And that's the noise you're looking for. A little bit more, I think. Already that smell's coming through nicely. Turn it down just a tad. Then I'm going to add in my gnocchi. Lining my tray with small paper, getting ready. So there's a couple of reasons why we're going super high on the heat. It's because again we want that nice crispy coating. With the gnocchi we want a really nice colour. We want it to kind of puff out just a little bit so it becomes nice and fluffy inside as well. So depending on how much you've got and how big your pan is, don't overfill your pan because you'll be getting it cold pretty quick. Then it'll take a little while for the temperature to come back up, and then before you know it, you've just got soggy mush at the bottom. Okay, so less more often is absolutely fine. Mine's already starting to make a lovely colour. Keep an eye on how much fat you've got because it will soak up some of the oil and the butter, so if you feel you need to add a little bit more, do, but just make sure you're doing it from the side so it comes in, not all the way over the top, because again you'll be reducing down that temperature. The smell is already coming through really nice with the butter as well. Excuse me. Start smelling the cheese. It's all really good. So imagine if you've got some fresh herbs in there as well. It'd be pretty epic. Just being really careful, obviously, really hot oil, working with a solid flame, so please take great care. Sounds amazing. Okay, so at this stage, should be looking a little bit like this, nice and golden, puffed out, very nice shape. Not an awful lot of oil, fat is left, but I'm going to leave it at that. You could whack in a final bit of butter if you like, just to really kind of enrich it and finish it off. Literally as you're ready to kind of tip it out. So I'm going to leave mine there. What I'm going to do, however, is give it a little pinch of salt. And then when I was saying about wild garlic pesto earlier on, I'm going to add in just over a spoon of that. Now be careful with it because it might tip a little bit. And just tipping it out into my tray with clean baking parchment. I'm going to hold this juice back and I'll show you why. Okay, so here we go. Now, as I said before, you can use like a pasta sauce. This is literally, to be honest with you, out of a jar, just so I can dish up to show you what it looks like. So, I don't know if you can see that. I think you can. I'll zoom in. There we go, look at those. Beautiful. So, case now, just plating up. And again, you can use it as part of the grater dish where you're adding other things to it. You can use it purely as the dish for you. Use it as a little starter, use it as a main, eat them as a nice little hot snack. So again, dipping it into certain things, whatever you like, whatever your dipping kind of want is. Now you could at this stage add just a touch more the pesto just to help kind of seal the dill. Very important that you do give it a little bit of that juice. And if you've got some cheese still, that's what you want to finish it with. And there you go. I know this is quite a longer video and there's a little bit more to do. There will be some that's easier. But this one, if you haven't tried it, please do. See what you think and enjoy. Thank you. See you again soon.